Good evening, parents and carers, and hopefully pupils joining us for our webinar this evening, which is focused on Year 6 transition, and a huge welcome to our senior school. Before I introduce the lower school team, I just want to say we're not expecting any technical difficulties, but if we do, please bear with us. We are really excited to welcome you all to the Forest Senior School in September, and it has been great to get to know some of you and see some of you at the different inductions. Some of you obviously coming from prep school, some of you were here obviously on Saturday, and we are truly excited as a wider school community to welcome you in due course. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Sloan, who is our head of lower school, and I wish you a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Milton. Very much appreciate your introduction there. Welcome to parents, carers, and incoming Year 7 students. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our Transition to Senior School webinar, where I hope we can give you some top tips on what to expect when you join us in September. I hope you had a fabulous time on Saturday and enjoyed the welcome morning. Always a really exciting time, seminal moment in your educational career, making the move up to senior school. It's great to see everyone blessed with fantastic weather, lots of ice cream, and I hope that you enjoyed meeting your heads of house and your tutors and essentially your pastoral team. So thank you for coming in on Saturday. It was great to see you all. I'm delighted this evening to go through our running order. You will hear obviously a bit from me right now, and I'll come back in at the end to talk about my own top tips. But we'll be starting with Miss Brasington, our Deputy Head of Lower School Personal Development, to talk to you a little bit about what we do personal development-wise at Forest and what to look forward to, and a few top tips there. And then, of course, Mr. Peggs will come in, our Deputy Head of Lower School Academic, and he will talk to you a bit about the academic journey and, again, some top tips with how to navigate that in your first year at Forest. So, without further ado, I'm delighted to pass over to my colleague, Miss Brasington, to talk you through all things personal development.
Hello. I will have already met some of you at our welcome morning, but if not, my name is Miss Brasington and I'm in charge of personal development in the lower school here at Forest. Now, personal development encompasses lots of different things, but on the whole, our focus is on charity, coaching, EDI, faith and belief, futures, people voice, sustainability, and well-being. Now, students will cover all of these topics during tutor times and assemblies throughout the year, but I also run the lower school council, so students can come to me directly if they feel they'd like to see more of a certain theme or idea in the PD curriculum, or if they feel they have a resource that they'd like to share for themselves. Now, if you'd like to have a look at our roadmap, you'll see that we begin in Michaelmas with a focus on growth and community, building up to well-being in the Lent term, and then diversity in Trinity. We begin with growth and community because really that's what Year 7 is all about. And the two themes really feed into each other. We want to support them as they grow academically, socially, and emotionally. We want our students to feel comfortable asking questions, embracing challenges, and crucially, we want them to recognize that making mistakes is a vital part of the learning process. Now, in order to foster emotional resilience and allow them to bounce back from those mistakes, we work really hard to build a strong sense of community throughout the lower school so that they feel supported and appropriately challenged. Their tutors and heads of houses will play a key role in providing this support, but we also recognise the value of peer support, which is why the first few weeks are full of opportunities for students to build more of those crucial relationships. And I'll talk a bit more about those in a moment. We also encourage them to try new things through clubs and activities, to build connections outside of the classroom and across year groups, whilst also making sure they don't take on too much. Sometimes that can be a bit of a balancing act, but we're there to sort of pick them up if that happens. We also introduce coaching strategies in Year 7, which are a really valuable tool to foster that emotional resilience, but hopefully will allow them to build better connections with their peers. This starts with identifying different types of listening. We try to train students to notice when they're doing me listening, which is listening to yourself or being a bit distracted when someone else is talking, and shift to micro listening, so listening to the words that people are saying, and then eventually encourage them to practice more macro listening, which means to encourage them to consider non-verbal cues and more implicit meanings. We then explore effective questioning methods and try and emphasize that the coachee has all the answers. They might just need a little bit of help from the coach to get there. The intention here is for students to eventually use these strategies to coach each other and support their friends in a meaningful and constructive way. And they might also begin to use these strategies themselves when they encounter a difficult decision. As well as outlining the PD curriculum, I'd like to share some data we gathered from the Settling In survey we conducted with the current cohort of Year 7 to give you a bit of an idea of what to expect. When asked the question, what have you enjoyed most about senior school so far, the most common responses were that they really value their newfound independence, the sense of freedom, and the friendships that they've made, which was really positive to see. Now, on the other side of the coin, we also see that friendships are something they feel they really struggle with, and that's not entirely surprising. Social dynamics, especially in Year 7, are constantly changing and evolving. And to a lot of young people, their friendships are their world. They're the most important thing to them in that moment. So these changes can feel quite frightening and overwhelming. Now, you as parents and their pastoral network will play a large role in guiding them through this, but we hope that our PD curriculum will equip them with the right tools to manage some of these interpersonal issues independently. Students also feel that they struggle with homework, sleep, and organisation. And again, these three themes all feed into each other. I know you'll all have your own routines at home, but in terms of practical strategies, I'd always recommend making sure they get into the routine of packing their own bags the night before, just to make sure they have all the equipment that they need, encouraging them to charge their laptop overnight, making sure the charger is packed, taking time to learn their homework timetable and their timetable for week A and B, so they know exactly what they need to pack. Having a physical copy of the homework timetable up in the house somewhere so that you can both keep track and get into the habit of checking Teams assignments each evening after school. So it's just these little things that eliminate a lot of that stress, particularly in the first week. I'd also suggest limiting screen time in the evenings and building at least 20 minutes of reading before bed. This will allow them to develop good sleep hygiene, but also encourages healthy reading habits, which as an English teacher, I'm always keen to push. Now, if organisation is something you find your child particularly struggles with, Mr. Peggs and I might organise regular meetings with them to teach organisational strategies to be used at school or at home. But we also want to empower them to speak up if they're struggling to keep on top of things. There's always things that the pastoral team can do to support them, but crucially, we need to know if that's something they feel that they're struggling with. Finally, before I pass on to Mr. Peggs, I just want to highlight the transition events baked into the calendar to help to facilitate some of those positive relationships that I talked about and help them and yourselves develop a better understanding of the school. So of course we have our induction day, but we also have the Year 7 Sports Festival, which happens in the first week on the afternoon of Friday the 5th, to help them sort of bond with each other through sports. We have our Year 7 tea and parent care engagement evening on Wednesday the 24th of September, and Year 7 bonding day on Thursday the 25th of September, which again gives them an opportunity outside of the classroom to build connections and make friends. We also have our Settling In survey to keep track of how they're doing, and of course house events and competitions where they can build those inter-year relationships as well. That's all from me. I'm really excited to get to know all of you, and I'm now going to pass on to Mr. Peggs.
Good evening. Unfortunately, I was unable to meet you on Saturday, those who are able to attend, so I look forward to doing so before then, if that's possible, and if not, in September. So as Miss Brassington said, I'm Mr. Beggs, I'm the Deputy Head of Lower School Academic, and I'm here to introduce what that means in the lower school. And the first important message is that we do expect students to make mistakes, and we don't want our students to worry about making those mistakes. Indeed, we often refer to the metaphor of that when we were young, we learned to walk by falling over. And that will be true to some to some extent, even in the lower school, at least metaphorically, as we are on that journey. We want students to make mistakes because that's evidence they're taking risks, they're going out of their comfort zones, they're trying something new. And although sometimes that might not work, overall, that will result in extreme growth and that journey to success. Now, as Miss Brassington said, we've got a large support network of various stakeholders in the school to ensure that we have this student-centred approach. And actually, some of the points that I'm going to make will overlap with what Miss Brassington said. And that's really important that we understand that the wellbeing and the academic does go hand in hand. What we do ask is that whenever possible and whenever necessary, students are proactive in coming forward to ask for that help from one of their core team, their tutor or their head of house, or from a subject teacher or anyone else they feel comfortable doing that with, Mr. Sloan as well. Sometimes we appreciate that students might be a bit more reluctant to do that for one reason or another. And so if that is the case, then of course parents can get in touch as well. Or students, if they're not proactive and they don't have that ability to come forward immediately in year 7, at least when they're asked by someone, they just pause and think, actually, I will tell the truth here because then my core team can help me make that progress. As Miss Brassington said, we need to remember the foundations of what a good transition to year 7 looks like. And that overlaps with the wellbeing and the academic progress as one. So we are after our students having 9 to 11 hours sleep a night. That hydration, that nutrition, that exercise, because those healthy bodies will result in a healthy mind, and then we'll be able to study more effectively. But also we do want some restful relaxation. Is a time that students are going to be doing a lot outside of school in terms of clubs and activities, as well as their studies. So restful relaxation of reading, listening to music, chatting with friends and family, going on trips and visits, and also maybe watching TV and films, but importantly, on a TV screen rather than on their phone, because we do not count scrolling as restful relaxation. When it comes to study, we're after that tidy, organised, distraction-free area for that to be done in. And of course, over time, students are going to develop their routines for that to be done successfully. It's important they learn from each other, they talk to their friends, they ask advice in school, and then if they're developing those routines, that is going to result in that success that we can all celebrate together. Now, parents, you're here tonight because you want to know what you can do to support your child through this transition. So please do engage with them each night and ask about homework. We use Teams to set homework, and it does sequence it by deadline, but that might not always be the most effective way to structure the order it's done in. So if you can also, and we'll obviously be doing this in school as part of the PE curriculum, but if you can also help your child prioritise and schedule when they do their homework. For example, there might be a scenario when one night they've got a sports club or another club after school, they've got 2 or 3 bits of homework to do, and they might not be able to fit them all in or be in the right mindset. Maybe they've got an essay to write, and it doesn't really work doing that when they're tired later that evening, but they could do the homework that involves, I don't know, watching a video on YouTube they've been set by a teacher and making some notes, and then they could save that difficult essay for the next night. If you could also support in keeping the environment for their study distraction-free, that might mean quieting younger siblings, it might mean even reflecting upon whether we are creating the distraction, as we sometimes can do, and then that's important. And actually the most significant point that we often face with year 7s early in the year is that they spend too long on their homework. That's because they want it to be perfect, and we clearly know that doesn't exist. We want students to do homework that is good enough to move on. They put as much effort as they can in the time that has been allocated for it, and that will be clear on Teams. If they find they're regularly taking too long on homework, that is something that we ask them to raise with their teachers, because believe it or not, sometimes we make mistakes too, and we overestimate what students are capable of. And we don't know that unless they're honest with us. Clearly, if they need help from us, they can also get in touch at any point, and doing homework on the first or second night will enable that to happen. When you help your child get in touch with us though, please could you maybe model how they send an email from their own account, and then of course that's going to build up their independence for the future. Ms Brassington spoke about being organised and packing the bag the night before, and maybe you need to help your child sometimes empty out what's in their bag. Year 7s do have a real worry about leaving something at home, and we want to avoid those crooked backs when they're bringing in all of their books every single day. So please have those conversations the night before. And we know that each of our Year 7s will turn up on the first day in September with a full bulging pencil case. But we also know that Year 7s occasionally lose things, or they lend it out and they don't get it back, or it runs out. So if you could regularly replenish that equipment stash, then that would be much appreciated, and that won't be a barrier to their learning. Now, Ms Brassington spoke about the survey that our Year 7s have done, the Settling In survey, and one of my even better ifs actually, it's even better ifs, is to be able to format PowerPoints correctly, as you can see. But what we do want to highlight here is that what we're saying is what our Year 7s are also saying, that we need to remember that we will make mistakes, we can learn through them. Organisation is crucial as well, that we mustn't be afraid to ask for help. And I think really importantly and perceptively from a Year 7 student, that the outcomes of academic tests do not define us. And that if we're putting in that effort and learning these strategies over a period of time, then that, as I alluded to earlier, will result in that longer term success. As Ms Brassington said, we are a bring your own device school. So please do coach your child through some of these elements over the summer. Make sure that MS Office is also installed. Now, we will be doing some of that during the first week and tutorials, but if at least they can be a little bit savvy with PowerPoint, Word and Excel, that would be great. We do use Teams and OneNote in school. Some teachers use OneNote more than others, and I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I like a bit of chalk and talk and a bit of exercise book work. Other teachers who are more modern than me do a lot of it on OneNote. So your child will get to know that in their first couple of lessons. And we do, as we say, we set homework via Teams assignments, and we also use that for notifications for important messages. So at least if they've explored a bit of that, then their form tutors and others will be able to fill in those blanks. Now, of course, it wouldn't be right of me to ignore assessment and reporting, but I've deliberately left that till the end. Not because I think it's the most important, but because actually everything else that we've spoken about will lead to success in this. We, of course, have these ongoing formative assessments, these day in, day out conversations with teachers, these little snapshots in their exercise books, in the students' exercise books that teachers mark, and they're really, really important. And of course, that written and that verbal feedback will lead to that long-term progress we keep talking about. CDAs are those standardised assessments, for want of a better phrase, across each subject area, which enables teachers and department leads to see which students have and haven't learned the skills and knowledge in the most recent weeks and months. Now, what's important for you to understand is that when this gets reported on, sometimes it can look like a student has made negative progress from one CDA to the next. That can be, though, because different skills are being assessed in different ways. So when we report our interim updates, please also pay special attention to the progress descriptors, because they show that ongoing holistic progress on the long learning journey. And as much as we will intervene when a student doesn't do so well in one CDA compared to another, it's that ongoing progress journey that is important. We do have end of year 7 exams. We just had them a few weeks ago, and they're designed to enable students to develop those real mature skills that are needed for the end of year 11. So in year 7, when we have that, it's relatively low stakes in terms of it's a nice way of introducing how we do exams, building up the stamina, building those revision skills, and of course, a range of marks will be achieved. Because to be honest, if all the students got really high marks, then we're probably not stretching them enough. So we need to be aware of that. And actually, on the board here, on the screen, the most important part that I'm going to finish by talking about are actually the Forest Learner scores. They're the scores that we give on reports for responsibility, for independence, for having the strategies needed to succeed as a learner. And my view is always that no matter what the CDAs and progress look like in year 7, if students are achieving high Forest Learner scores, then that means that they're going to have that long-term success we keep speaking about. So finally, if we look at our school values here of growth, hard work, etc., and then we see how that informs our academic mantra of students taking responsibility, knowing where they're going and knowing how to get there, then over time we will all have that long-term success we can celebrate. It won't always work out and there'll be ups and downs, but we'll be here to support all of you when those downs happen, and then we'll celebrate those successes with you. Now going to hand over to Mr. Sloan to talk about other aspects of the transition. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much to Mr. Peggs and of course Ms. Brasington as well for describing the personal development journey and all the nuances of academic life at Forest as well. So as Mr. Peggs says, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the kind of overview now of life in the lower school. And I'm actually going to start by mentioning Place to Be, which is our in-house counselling service here at Forest. And unfortunately, Amanda, who's in charge of Place to Be, Amanda Gale, was unable to be with us this evening. She would have spoken just briefly about what Place to Be is. So I did want to just mention this. It's a fantastic service. Lots of students use it. Some in year 7 when they are dealing with transition and perhaps finding it a little bit more challenging. It's a great service because it's very discreet. It's an opportunity for pupils to talk about anything they like, from friendships to organisation to things going on at home. It's just a brilliant service that gives students an outlet to really share how they're feeling, and it's one that's very popular with our students at Forest. There's 2 elements to it. There's Place to Talk, which is just an ad hoc one-off meeting, normally at lunchtime and normally with Amanda. And then there's the more formalised element, which is Place to Be for those who want sessions across a sort of extended period of time, who perhaps need a little bit more help and support. So it's a brilliant service and one that's available to all of our students at Forest. So in terms of the transition to senior school, you'll see that we have our designated lower school area, the Gilded building, where the 3 of us are currently situated. And it's actually filled with a wonderful art exhibition at the moment, which is really fantastic. And this allows us to foster our lower school community. Everyone in year 7 and 8 has their tutor room and their tutor provision within the Gilded building. So it really is a lower school hub. We also have our hard play area just off to the right-hand side of the Gilded area, the Gilded Hall, which again is for lower school pupils only. So it really helps that transition. We know that for year 7 students suddenly being mixed up and seeing on the site our year 11, our sixth form students can feel quite daunting. So this allows us to be a little bit of a school within a school and really help with that transition to make pupils really, really settled. Okay. Sorry for the dodgy arrows. It hasn't come across onto the screen as well as it should. But we have our personal development curriculum, which of course Ms. Brasington mentioned, and this is structured to tutor time sessions on anything from sustainability to Earth Day to looking at world history and global politics. To our assemblies, we were graced this morning with 3 sixth formers who were talking about their project that they're putting forward next year, the Social Hub, a really nice idea of helping to foster links between all members of our Forest community. So we are very much led by student voice. It's a great opportunity in assembly to hear from different people amongst the school community, and it really feeds into that idea of growth and personal development that you've mentioned. Every student at Forest has a pastoral team, and it starts with their tutor. They're the most important individual in a student's life at Forest. They see them every day, twice a day, AM and PM reg. The tutor is the biggest advocate of a student at Forest, closely followed by their head of house, who will oversee their journey, hopefully across the long term of their 7-year time at Forest, and probably get to know them the best. Be there, as I mentioned, on Saturday to celebrate the highs and pick them up when there's any lows. And I'm sure after Saturday, some of those relationships are already forming. And I know it's so powerful to meet those individuals in your pastoral team face to face. And then, of course, you'll have the head of the section that you're in. And in the lower school, of course, that's me, as well as Mrs. Milton, who introduced us, our deputy head pastoral, and Miss Brasington and Mr. Peggs as our lower school team. So really, really strong pastoral network for all of our Forest students. Key events to look out for, I've mentioned this at Welcome Morning, is our 2-day induction starting on Wednesday, the 3rd of September. On that day, it is only year 7 students who will be in Forest and some year 12s who are also coming into the sixth form. So it's very much bespoke induction to get them used to Forest. We give them a map, we give them a tour of the school, we do some fun icebreaker activities, teach them about what their timetable is going to be. Then on the Thursday, We digitally induct them so they're au fait with all of our systems and up and running and really ready to go. We have our Parent Carer Tea on the 24th of September, a brilliant event for students to mix and bond and introduce their teachers to parents and carers. Very informal, a great opportunity to mix, and if we're lucky, we will have similar weather to what we enjoyed on Saturday. We have our bonding day the very next day, where pupils go off site to do all kinds of fun team building activities. And then, of course, there's the usual array of co-curricular and extracurricular, from sport to music, drama, art, clubs and societies, which all help pupils feel like they are part of Forest. And of course, it helps them to develop those key habits inside and outside the classroom, of being organised, of being independent, and building their resilience. Really, really important. So what are the big differences that you can expect then coming up from year 6? Well, certainly a much greater and wider variety of lessons with, again, a wider variety of subject specialists. You will learn across year 7, 19 different subjects, some of them on a carousel and some of them as part of your weekly timetable. So it's a huge exposure to a huge variety of different areas and different topics that promise to be fun and exciting, and I'm sure you'll get absolutely stuck into learning all about them. We've talked a lot, and obviously Saturday was dominated by the house system. 14 houses at Forest, 7 boys, 7 girls, twinned to make the tutor group that sees them through their lower school journey. It's a great opportunity for role modelling, for getting involved in house events. There's something for everyone, from chess to swimming to drama. There really is a house event that absolutely encapsulates everyone's strengths. If you're into cooking, there's MasterChef, there's debating. If you feel there isn't something, tell your head of house, and I'm sure there's a way to get it in there and make a nice house event out of it. As I mentioned on Saturday, they are super competitive with their house events. Organisation, without doubt, is the key to success. And I won't harp on too much about this because Mr. Peggs has already given some really fantastic insights. But you do need to be organised, packing that bag the night before and not bringing it all in. You'll definitely feel there's a faster pace. Okay, 6 lessons a day with a break after the first 2 and then lunch break after the second 2. But the pace of the day will feel quicker than primary school for sure. You'll be moving around a lot, moving to science for your science lessons, not just staying still. You'll be literally roaming the site. That will mean you need to be independent. You need to learn your timetable and you need to learn the nuances of our routine and of our school site. And that'll take time, and we will support you with that and we will help you settle in, and it will happen. You'll get used to our Yonder pouches and Yonder policy, which I'll mention in a minute. And of course, you'll start getting homework. Not for the first 2 weeks, where we allow time to settle in and get used to life at Forest and our routines and rhythms, but then homework will start to become embedded across, obviously, the expectations of our academic teaching. Your first point of contact, as I mentioned, is your tutor, and that is the same for parents and carers. If you have any worries or concerns, please do obviously send in an email or pick up the phone and ask to speak to the tutor. That's absolutely what they're there for. And then, as I mentioned already, you have your pastoral team, your head of house, deputy heads of section, myself, and Mrs. Milton. But there are also others as well who you maybe haven't considered. We'll have a chaplain from January. We have our place to be on-site counselling that I mentioned with Amanda, who's brilliant. We have our learning support team for anyone who has SEN needs, but even those who just need a little bit more help and support and intervention. They're there to help as well. We have a number of digital partners that students are welcome to access at any time. We use peer mentoring, particularly within the house system, to again buddy up pupils to help them with that transition and make sure they settle and feel safe. And finally, we have our safeguarding team headed up by our fabulous DSL, Mr. Kane. And when you enter the site in Forest, you'll see there's posters everywhere with the mugshots of all the safeguarding team, including myself, and we're all there as absolute key pillars of support for our students here at Forest. Mrs. Milton would absolutely tell me off for not mentioning our support systems and our pastoral foundations. They're all based around the school values. Ms. Brasington mentioned these earlier and how we embed them into our personal development curriculum. And you can see that pastoral care is absolutely at the heart of everything we do. It's woven into the fabric of Forest, where every pupil is known, liked and valued. Everyone feels safe and secure, and that we firmly believe in earliest intervention strategies, listening to pupil voice and communicating to all of our stakeholders. Those truly are the pastoral foundations that we live by, and we absolutely hold pupils to account in that way and expect to be held to account likewise. As it says there, the two are not mutually exclusive. They work together in tandem. But that pastoral support and that system is central to everything we do. It's an absolute pillar of strength at Forest. In terms of the academic life, obviously, Mr. Peggs has mentioned expectations, and it'd be remiss of me not to mention our Forest classroom and Forest standards, where we expect pupils to take responsibility for their own behaviour, ensuring that they meet our expectations of what we expect from a Forest learner. That secondly, they're responsible for engaging in their own learning and ensuring they're proactive. If they're not sure about something, as Mr. Peggs mentioned, they're asking for help. They're not just being a passenger. We want lessons to be fulfilling and engaging, but students must play their part in that. There's responsibility for others' learning and ensuring that you're not distracting or distracting from others and obviously disrupting the learning of others. And then finally, there's the responsibility of your academic progress, knowing where you are in your learning journey and where you need to go. And that's critical, and that's something that we look to embed very much in our lower school pupils, right from the off in Year 7. Settling into senior school, well, I mentioned, and I'm shamelessly going to talk about it again, organisation being key. Mr. Peggs covered obviously your rucksacks and not taking in everything all at once. Get into the habit of doing your homework on the night it's set. Again, shamelessly repeating this mantra because it is so important. Make sure you know what you're doing with Teams and how to navigate it, how to upload assignments and find out where they are. Absolutely use Year 7 to build good habits. You need to find out what works for you in terms of doing your homework. Are you someone who gets home quite early and you can attack it as soon as you get in and keep the rest of your evening free? Are you someone who needs a bit of a cognitive break, needs to unwind a little bit, eat, have dinner, have a shower, and then come back to your homework later? There's no right way of doing it, but the key is establishing a habit that works for you and making it embedded into your school day. Ask questions. If you're not sure, don't bottle it up inside, okay? We are really fantastic, but we're not mind readers. So whatever you're feeling or thinking, if there's a problem, no matter how little or small you think it might be, just ask. Ask your tutor, your head of house, one of the lower school team. Send us an email, drop us a note on Teams. There's so many different ways to communicate. Just make sure you're doing it. Don't sit on things or let them or dwell on them or build up. We need to hear from you, okay? And that's really, really important. And then finally, and I'm going to mention next, about Yonder. If you are someone who is going to bring in a phone to school, which you have every right to do, then you must get into the habit of remembering to bring in your Yonder pouch every day and ensuring that your phone is obviously securely tucked away and locked away, which your tutors will check on every morning. On the topic of Yonder, I mentioned on Saturday that I would talk a little bit about this. It's really up to a parent and carer whether they want their child to have a phone or not. It's entirely a parent-carer choice. And again, that choice of whether it's a smartphone or a brick phone or no phone at all is really up to you. But what we do is we ensure that anyone who has a phone must secure it into their Yonder pouch at the beginning of the day in tutor time at 8:30, where we see them physically lock it, and then it's locked away on their own possession until the unlocking stations are open at the end of the day at 4 o'clock, where students can literally tap on, a bit like you would tapping onto the tube. Literally happens in a second, and the pouch is open and you can retrieve your phone. To reduce and eliminate any tethering or hotspots, we have our bring your own device policy that obviously Mr. Peggs mentioned, and we strongly urge parents and carers, if you are going to give your child a phone, to think about how much data you give them. we can safeguard against filtering and monitoring by having them on our network. And all devices as part of their digital induction will be onboarded onto our network. The same can be done on a smartphone, so they can access the Wi-Fi on the school. This allows them to keep us to keep them safe, because obviously we can monitor what they are doing and we can filter and block any websites that they shouldn't be accessing. So if a student is allowed data, obviously that eliminates all the safeguards we put in place. So I would say to parents, I don't think they need data on their laptops. You should be very, very careful about that and the settings that they have. Remember that any app that you might be concerned about them having on their phone is just as accessible on their laptop. So we can safeguard that with onboarding and Wi-Fi. But if they have data, they can obviously find a way around it. So I do urge parents and carers to have a real think about that when they come to purchasing devices and when it comes to phone use. Okay, but we try to mitigate that risk as much as possible, and certainly Yondr has massively reduced the number of online issues that we have seen in the lower school. It's been a real success story, excuse me, thus far. Finally, as we begin to finish up our webinar, a few top tips from our own Year 7, which I think really neatly encapsulate what lower school and Forest is all about. Don't hesitate to make friends, enjoy yourself, throw yourself into everything, do your homework on the night it's set. And I really like the top one, be persistent, perseverant, and positive, and you will be successful. So that's straight from the horse's mouth from our current Year 7s. Absolutely, if you would adhere to those things, I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful, wonderful time with us at Forest. So that's enough of me babbling on. If there are any questions, we will now allow for some questions to come through, which I will attempt to answer, and then we'll, of course, wrap things up. So if you do have a question, now's the time, and hopefully we can give about 5 minutes or so over to any questions that might come through. So we don't have any questions at the moment, which is absolutely fine. I will give it a minute or two, and if we don't have any questions after that, then we'll end the webinar, but I will give it a minute or two just in case any come through. Okay, well, we haven't got any questions, which is no problem at all. If you do watch this webinar and you're not watching it live, it will, of course, be recorded. You are more than welcome to email any queries you have through to our school office if anything comes to mind. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening, giving up your time. Or in fact, we have one question. There we go. We've got one. Can we confirm the school bus is not available on the 3rd of September? Yes, unfortunately, it's not available on the 3rd of September because term does not officially start until the 4th. So on the 3rd only, pupils will have to make their way to and from school without use of the school bus, but it will be in action from Thursday the 4th. So thank you to parents, carers and incoming Year 7 students for joining us tonight. We are really excited to welcome you in September. I think it's going to be a fantastic cohort. We really felt some wonderful warmth and energy from you coming in on Saturday, and we really appreciate the time you gave up, and we're really, really looking forward to you coming to join us. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I look forward to seeing you all in September. Take care.